popular thing to come out of Cars 3 at its time of release in terms of new characters were the next-gen Piston Cup racers. I mean, how couldn't they be? They were these super cool, brand new Piston Cup racers, the likes of which we'd never seen before. So futuristic that real-life counterparts for them didn't even exist. They were based on potential concept art for what NASCAR racers could look like in the future. And while the next gens remained popular for several years, I feel like more recently I've seen kind of a shift in fan perception, with more and more people telling me that they think the next gens are kind of disinteresting and prefer the previous generation of racers from the beginning of Cars 3. So let's talk about that. Hello everybody and welcome back to another T2 Reviews Tie discussion. Today we're answering the question, are the next gens overrated? So let's begin. Now, there's something that I really need to talk about when it comes to the next gens, and that's simply the hype around them. The hype for next gens was inescapable within the Cars fandom in 2017, all the way through to 2021 when we got the final next gens. This is, in my opinion, one of the smartest moves Mattel's ever pulled off for the Cars diecast line. I've complained several times in the past, including in my past discussion video about the failures of Thunder Hollow diecasts, that Mattel released way too many Cars 3 characters in 2017 that left fans being disinterested in them in future years. In 2017, we got all of the Thunder Hollow Demolition Derby racers, except for Fair Game. All of them at once in 1 year, and in that previous discussion video I talked about how I feel like that caused fans to really lose interest in Thunder Hollow racers. Same thing with the Cars 3 veteran racers. You could see just peeking over at my checklist there, we got nearly all of them in 2017 and the last few in 2018, and then people really didn't talk about them much afterwards. There wasn't much hype because you could get all of them from the beginning, and while it may seem really nice to get all the characters from this group at the beginning of the release cycle for Cars 3, I feel like it hurts the Cars diecast line long term. Look at Cars on the Road, right? A lot of us complained that it took way too long to get characters like President Mater or Cave Mater, and while I really think that those should have been released earlier on when their McQueen variants were, you gotta say it still is pretty good for the longevity of the Cars diecast line. You can't have every single McQueen and Mater from On the Road be out right after On the Road comes out, or else people are gonna lose interest, right? You get them all at once, okay, well now I'm not interested anymore. I have all the McQueens and Maters, you know? I'm not that interested anymore. I have all the veteran racers, and you need to remember in the Cars series, of course, race cars are super popular with both kids and collectors. In 2017, we barely got any next gens. At the launch of Cars 3, we only had Jackson Storm, Danny Sorvez, and Tim Treadless. By the end of the year, we'd also gotten Chase, Ryan, and Bubba, a couple of guys exclusive to multi-packs, and of course the infamous Next Gen 4-pack. And then, over the next few years, next gens continued to trickle out throughout 2018, 19, 20, and finally wrapping up in 2021. For years, we got next gens every few months, which really kept collectors hyped up and, you know, excited to see who would come next. It kept them invested. It kept people coming back to the Cars diecast line, you know, to see what was new, to see what was going on. And in 2021, by the time we got to the end of the next gens, it felt like a monumental event for the Cars diecast line. It felt like the end of a chapter. Perfect, honestly, because the following year we got Cars on the Road, which would give us brand new characters and diecast for people to be interested in, and I honestly think that was a very deliberate choice. To stretch out the next gens for a long time, so that by the time they were all wrapped up, collectors had a new thing to look forward to. Because next gens are easily the most popular thing in terms of merchandise to come out of Cars 3. So that's how it was early on, and now that we have all the next gens, like I said, I feel like perception is starting to shift a bit. I've always felt like the next gens all look a little too samey. I brought out these three guys, which I put right next to each other on my shelf, and yeah, they're all very, very similar in terms of design. For several years in my reviews, I complained about how there wasn't much variety in terms of color scheme for next gens. This is the only yellow one, this is the only pink one. You know, out of a group of almost 40, I'd say almost half of them are just shades of blue, green, and a few purples. Now, the point of the next gens, I'm pretty sure, is the fact that they're all supposed to be samey, right? They're these futuristic racers, all with these determined stone faces, with these super oversimplified logos and designs and everything, you know? They're not supposed to look like they have personalities or characters. The brands on them aren't supposed to be flashy and colorful. They're not supposed to pop out. They're all just supposed to be like a clone army, you know, pretty much. And while I always used to complain about the next gens all looking the same, I feel like I never really heard that complaint from other people. I feel like most collectors were just too excited to get a new bumper save racer, new spearmint racer, new four-wheel drive racer, etc. Personally, the Piston Cup racers have never been my all-time favorite Cars characters, but a lot of Cars fans just adore the Piston Cup racers, and a lot of them adore them a lot more than I do. So for me, you know, I would be complaining a bit more about the next gens looking the same or having similar color schemes or whatever, while other people would just be excited to be getting these new racers. But nowadays, I feel like I'm hearing more and more people talk about the veteran racers and how overlooked they are, and how much they love the veteran racers, and honestly, I do too, and I completely agree with the notion that these guys are super overlooked. And that's kind of the point for them, right? They only exist in the movie to be replaced by the next gens. But they all have such stellar designs. Although ironically, due to the fact that they were all released at once, very early on, and then the next gens were released basically after them. Most of these guys were out by the time they started consistently doing next gens. These guys were completely overlooked by most collectors, who became more and more excited over next gens. And it's only now, after all the next gens are out, that I feel people are sort of going back to these and being like, yeah, these were pretty cool. And it's an interesting duality of two different ways to release things, right? Get them all out at once or spread them out over several years, and it has, you know, different reactions from people. Another thing with these guys is they're barely released nowadays. These racers were pretty consistently re-released from 2017 through to around 2020, but ever since Mattel dropped the series system, they've almost entirely dropped these guys. We barely get any nowadays. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm pretty sure like none of them were out in 2023, right? Like none of these guys. We had only 2 racers from the first Cars. We had a ton of next gens. The next gens are always getting re-released again and again. Another thing that I've complained about for years, they constantly just recycle the same few next gens to re-release and throw in 2-packs and stuff. But these guys are completely overlooked in terms of releases, and that's why I think I'm hearing more and more people talk about them now. Because they're just not getting released as much. They're not getting as much love. They've never gotten as much love as the next gens, but now that all the next gens are out, people are sort of going back to these guys. I was never the biggest next gen fan on the planet, but I was certainly a part of the huge hype wave for next gen diecasts that existed for several years. I still think that they're all really cool on their own, you know, but nowadays I really get why a lot of people are saying that they're overrated or saying that they prefer the Cars 3 veterans. This is just something that's been on my mind lately, and I want to know what you guys think. What do you think about the next gens versus veteran racers in the modern day? Which generation do you prefer and why? And do you think that the release schedule for the diecasts has anything to do with it? Definitely let me know in the comments. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.